Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Danielle coming to you from the land of Lenape and Canarsie people here in Brooklyn, New York, representing LK Wellness and as a part of our 5-minute interview series. I am here today with Bonnie Fairbanks. Welcome, Bonnie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Um, let's just start off by just giving a brief introduction of who you are and letting everyone know who you are and where you're coming from.
I'm from the Eagle Clan, and I do live and I do work here in the nation of Leech Lake.
Um, so the first question that I have, let's just dive right into it, right?
Okay.
Just doing my own research and talking with some other folks, I've noticed that there's different terminologies, right, for
Right.
talking about people within the Indigenous community, right? So
Right.
there's Indigenous, there's Native American, American Indian, whether you should say tribe, whether you should say nation. So I
Right.
just wanted to, ask you as a member of one of the communities, one of the nations, what would be best practice in terms of using or asking around this terminology?
Yeah. So for myself, personally for myself in Minnesota, when we're speaking to the 11, so there's 11 tribal nations,
Okay.
right? Federally recognized, us being one of them.
Mhm.
Um, I'm always speaking to, I'm from the Leech Lake Nation, right? If
Yeah.
we're addressing something, whether that's, in a meeting or politically, or you're going to someplace for legislation to end up changing something, so we're always speaking to the Leech Lake Nation, not the reservation, right? So, but I guess I would say, if it's for listeners who are non-Indian, right, to really embrace tapping into going to some place, whether that is university or a village that's there. I know you guys are all New York, right?
Mhm.
But there are many places that you can witness and, embrace the culture of another culture, to go there.
So there's a preference, maybe not a preference, but uh, the use of the word nation is what you would encourage, at least on a, personally,
Yeah.
versus Native American or Indian or Indigenous.
Well, I think like for myself, right, and I can speak for myself, is that I always speak that we're Indigenous, like it's Indigenous Peoples Day, right? Indigenous Peoples Day was last month, which was September, right? So recognizing that
Well,
instead of it
October.
being Columbus Day,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
right? Not
Mhm.
anymore, right?
Yeah.
So we celebrate that day. And a lot of the places where we live, because we live in a place on the Leech Lake Nation, right? And then we're surrounded by two other nations, White Earth and Red Lake. But the businesses are usually non-Indian. The communities are non-Indian where there's a surrounding, right? So
Mhm.
they've recognized and then are supporting that piece of Indigenous Peoples Day, right? But today's speaking, I think that it's about the Native American Heritage Month, right? So the month of November,
Mhm.
right, is lots of different things that are happening in each different nation, whether it's, in California or Oregon or in the Canadian nations, right, or territories, right? So there's a lot of different language that people use, and I guess it's just up to those individuals, and how they're speaking. A lot of my elder women, grandmothers, always talked about, as we're introducing ourselves, to end up in our language, right, which we are Anishinaabe, Ikwe and Dao, right? I am Anishinaabe woman, right? So you're introducing it in that way. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that, right?
yeah, yeah,
It is important to know, at least for me, the ways that colonizing or colonization has impacted nations and peoples and cultures is something that we're actively undoing every day, right? So that it's
Right.
not something, although it will have a lasting impact, and it has had a lasting impact, that it's not something that we are not working to actively fight against, right? And I think that that's important to know, that we just don't have to accept it, right? As
Right.
forever, that we can make our changes in the ways that we need to. And that sometimes it can be hard, right? Not everybody wants to, or people do it at different paces, but that it's active work. I want to just go back quickly to that feeling of being overwhelmed, right? Oftentimes I think BIPOC folks are put into positions as teachers, right? For folks that are unaware of what is going on. In that moment with your hygienist, did you feel this pressure to be a teacher, or was it a feeling of like, this is needed and I'm okay with being able to be the one to give this information?
I think that it depends.
Hmm.
So I believe that so many times in the work, that I'm doing in my job, or when it comes to, just a personal kind of event that ends up going on, it's always that. And I think that you feel at different times, oh, this is a great opportunity. Sometimes you see many different things, yourself as a woman of color as well, right? So when we come across something in a store or, in a place, we have an opportunity, and sometimes we witness something that no one cares. It is going in one ear and out the other, right? And then sometimes it'll stop somebody in their tracks, and it'll kind of be a really beautiful moment, right? So at that time, I think, just kind of thinking back here, it was like, I thought it was a great opportunity, because I'm hearing from her, what is the big deal?
Mm-hmm.
Why does everybody have to have so much energy put into something like name changes, right? Or even places, landmarks that are named after people who did horrific things to the indigenous people, as well as to the African American people that were like in the inner city, right? Lakes and towns and roads and everything that are named after people that did not such great things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I guess that's coming from a lot of history, indigenous history. And it's just like, wait a minute here, you get this feeling, right, of never been taught. I think that's another big, huge piece in regards to indigenous history being taught through whether that's middle school, elementary, middle school, and high school, right? And then a lot of people that are going to college or afterwards are finding out, oh, this is not what the truth is, sort of a speak kind of a thing. So yeah. So there's so many different, it's like so many different roots, I believe, to, for me being Anishinaabe. And I think sometimes you get real tired of it, right? Because you want to get to what you need to do instead of all this explanation or, reframing things or whatever, So it just kind of goes back and forth, right? So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah, for sure.
as someone who did go through most of the educational system in the United States, I can attest to what you said, that when we talked about Native American history, that it was from a very whitewashed lens. Correct. And even the tone with which it was taught, it was just like, there's Thanksgiving and Columbus came, and
Right.
great, and the lands were freely given and shared, and there was no feeling of like this was wrong, right? Unless you like really took the time to think about it. And I don't think that that's encouraged in the school settings, or even in certain conversations in certain spaces. So I appreciate you taking the time when you can, and the energy when you can afford to give it, to teach and to change that narrative.
Work that I do at Zagaswaswajamakaganadaziwen is I work as a cultural advisor, but not just in the behavioral health essence. It is with child welfare, it is with A&D, it is within a lot of different places, right? So,
Wow.
so we're always trying to step into that piece, right? Whether people are coming through and they're having an old time come to visit them, or they're in a big anxiety, or they're in a big sad, right? We want them to know that there's strength-based remembrance and things that are here in the right now, right? Always. And so that is coming from a different lens than we're just like talking about the story of what's happened to you or whatever, you know, when people are sad, maybe be coming through your doors, right? Or feeling anxiety or depression, you know, or whatever they're feeling, right? That they have such wisdom inside of them and such strength inside of them. And if they can just tap into that piece, you know, that's going to end up helping their nervous system, right, to calm and to move on for the rest of the day.
We got so caught up in, you know, the questions just came so naturally, and I love that for our conversation. And you know, I'm curious about more of your work. Like, what are some of the things that you've been doing, and
Okay.
if you could just enlighten us about
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I'll touch on just a couple of pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, you know, we had a woman that was here who just really tapped into her own, what she was supposed to do, right? So she was this trained nurse. She's a Native woman. She's an Anishinaabe from up in the Red Lake Nation, Makade Makwa, Ikwe. So she kind of set that aside and really started moving into birth for our women, right? And she started to end up opening doors for women to come in to get doula trained. So that was sort of what ended up happening in our community. And then right after that, there were sessions that were going on that was really starting to open some doors, right? Even to the women that were from the farm that's down in southern Minnesota or southern United States, where there was back in the day in the 70s or 60s, these women and men wanted to gather someplace to end up having healthy pregnancies, you know, healthy foods, and not have hospital births. And now it's a big midwifery center where people are going to get trained to end up being midwives and really, you know, helpers and such, right? So she opened that door for many of us to tap into the wisdom that we all know, right? We all know how to birth our babies, and we're always
I know I keep saying this, but that's pretty awesome.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just changes I guess even my own way of thinking about birth, and opens more room for me being an individual and understanding how this is impacting me.
Right.
And again, with the choice of like, how do I create and curate an environment that feels good for me, for my partner, for the family, for the baby. And just thinking about that as a process, and not just like, you know, something I just have to arrive at a hospital and just,
right.
you know, tell you to do this and do, you know, and they kind of control and dictate. You know, and if that's your choice, like you said, that's up to you. But I think just knowing that there's other options out there, I think is really special for me.
Incorporating lots of different things we do, I love to do, because it makes it so much more fun, right? And then of course our original ways, and those are our original ways, but we incorporate a lot of ceremony into the healing aspect of, and that's not just with myself, but that's with people that do facilitate those. So when trauma's there, or when sadness is there, or lots of grief, layers maybe of grief, you know, we can end up getting help from many things, you know, many our drums, you know, our songs, different things of this aspect, right? And those are our ancient ways that still help and will always help the people here in our nation as well as all over. Yeah.
Yeah. We
Mhm.
got to take the time to tap into it and also give ourselves the permission to focus inward once
Right.
again. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wonderful. Um, I guess the final question is, if there's one thing that you want people to know from watching this, if they take away nothing else, right, from all that we've talked about today, what is one thing that you hope people can kind of gain from our conversation today?
Um, I guess I would say, if it's for listeners who are non-Indian, right, to really embrace tapping into going to some place, whether that is university or a village that's there. I know you guys are all New York, right?
Mhm.
But there are many places that you can witness and, embrace the culture of another culture. To go there, just to end up witnessing it, tasting it, smelling it,
Mhm.
participating in it, you know, a dance if it's that. Um, even just grasping even something like this, right? Which is a beautiful, beautiful, like I'm going to a fashion show
Beautiful.
in 2 weeks, right? This is all beadwork. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all beautiful beadwork that somebody has
Wow.
did, right?
It's great
And
work.
I'm going to a fashion show, which is an indigenous fashion show, right? And it's just beautiful, from quill work to beadwork to a woman and her daughters that have really blown away a lot of style, right? It is style, which is even for men and women, with ribbons,
Mm.
beads, cloth, kind of mixing it up old school with the new, and strutting it down, and just some of them are just like embracing, So I'm like so excited about going to her fashion show, and it's huge. She's traveling all over with it, right? But just to do that,
Mhm.
step outside and kind of witness some other folks' stuff, right?
Mhm.
Because it will just really enrich your own self. And that's, I guess, what I would end up saying as the thing I would like to share is, yeah, try some different authentic food, which is, wild rice.
Yeah. I think that that's a great idea, and it certainly has sparked my own curiosity to see, we're in Brooklyn, so it's Little Haiti in particular, in
Okay.
the Flatbush area. But I do know that, there are opportunities, right, to get to know these other cultures and the
Right.
nations that are here in New York. It just takes some time and some intentionality, I think,
Yeah.
do that, right? So be
Right.
curious and embrace other cultures and get an understanding of what else exists beyond your own, understanding of the world as it is right now.
Right. Because out of those grandbabies
Mhm.
that I have, there are two young girls that are their bloodline. One is from Oklahoma, so she's
Mhm.
Ponca as
Mhm.
well as Anishinaabe. That's my little Logan, right?
Mhm.
And my other granddaughter, her bloodline is Anishinaabe, so that's Minnesota here, right? And where we're from, Leech Lake. But she also has Paiute and Shoshone blood.
Mm.
So those are not my bloodlines, but my curiosity and to understand a bit of their language, right, or a bit of their differences is my responsibility, right? So I can embrace them, those girls, not just only they don't stand in the Leech Lake Nation bloodline here,
Mhm.
but their ancestors are from a different nation, which is like a desert. And then
Mhm.
Oklahoma is much different as well. So yeah, so it's sort of like that, a kind of a responsibility, that
Yeah.
I feel like I have as a grandmother, but also as a woman, to end up respecting all aspects of people's bloodlines,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't know or take the opportunity to get to know these other cultures, then you can't fully accept, right, and fully engage with what people are presenting if you're not
Yeah.
time to do
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah,
that is
step into that this month. The Native American Heritage Month is what, is happening now. And there's all kinds of different things that are kind of going on, even if you have to get it on the laptop.
as many things are happening in this time, but I'm going to really encourage everyone that's watching and that has seen this to really go out there and to engage, right? Engage in a
Right.
positive and healthy and open-minded way.
Mhm,
And to
mhm.
recognize that you're entering into other people's territory and space,
Right.
and to do that with grace, honor, and respect.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Bonnie.
Thank you so much. This has been a
And
pleasure.
yeah, it's been great talking to you. Thank you. People didn't see this before, but Bonnie really calmed my nerve and my spirit and, made me feel comfortable having
Mm.
this conversation. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much
Oh.
for taking the time to talk with all of us and to give us
Mhm,
a little bit
mhm.
of an insight into your experience and what you've been doing.
Very honored to be with you. Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, everyone, take care, be well, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
Okay. Miigwech.